Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin shortly. Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The program will begin in 1 minute. Please welcome to the stage ALEC President and Chief Economist, Jonathan Williams.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. What an incredible ALEC annual meeting so far, and we're just getting started. So today I have the pleasure to kick off our afternoon together. But as always at ALEC, before we dive into the discussion, we want to take a moment to pause and give thanks. So please join me in welcoming Kentucky State Minister Kyle McDaniel of Capitol Commission to lead us in a prayer.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to come open today in prayer. My name again is Kyle. I am a state minister from the great state of Kentucky, and I work, there they are. I hear the yee-haws. I'm with an organization called Capitol Commission, so thank you for this. I'd like to read from the Word of God, Matthew chapter 7. Jesus says, "Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and the one who knocks, it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those who ask him? Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Our Father, thank you for your love and mercy. Today we gather as more than political and government leaders, but as children of the Most High God, a God who has conquered the grave and calls us even now to lead with humility and to love like Christ. It is my prayer that you would grant each of us the wisdom to decipher between what is true and what is false, the discernment to choose between what is righteous and wicked, and the insight to build upon the beautiful and not the profane. Lord, may we fulfill the privileged responsibilities you have entrusted each of us with a joy worthy of your praise and the faithfulness of loyal servants. You have called us to this moment to address the challenges of today, and we confess to you that we are weak. Therefore, lead us well, show us your love, teach us humility, and bless our time together here today. Thank you for this meal. Thank you for those who have prepared and served it. And thank you for the fellowship we are about to enjoy. Lord, thank you for these men and women. Good governance pleases you. Faithful servant leadership pleases you. Meekness and humility pleases you. May we please you. We ask, therefore, that you would bless our homes, bless our communities, bless our states, and bless our great nation. Above all, we ask that your kingdom would come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And to Christ, who is seated upon an eternal throne, who rules with justice and love, and hears the voice of all who cry out to him, we pray. Amen. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Well, thank you. Well, education freedom isn't just a policy debate for us here at ALEC and a major policy priority. It's a story that's playing out in real classrooms, proving every day what is possible when families are given the freedom to choose. To guide the conversation and help us understand what it takes to make a lasting impact on education policy, please join me in welcoming our amazing ALEC National Chair, Florida Representative Demi Buzana.
Thank you so much. Excited for this lunch day. How's everyone doing? All right. Well, today we have two very special guests to help lead this conversation. And first I'm going to call up Eva Moskowitz and Representative Jennifer Kennedy. Well, thank you both for joining us today. And just a couple of short introductions. To my left here, Representative Jennifer Kennedy will be Speaker of the Florida House in 2 years, and she will be the first female Speaker of the Florida House. Yes. Yes. And she has a background in education. And then all the way at the end, Eva Moskowitz, the founder and creator and president and everything there is to know about Success Academy. And if you're not familiar with Success Academy, that's what we'll be talking about today. So you both care deeply about the future of education, about the power of school choice, and especially about the critical importance of excellence. Excellence in everything we do, especially excellence in education. Few, if any, Florida legislators have ever had your depth of hands-on experience in education. How has your background in education impacted how you think about governing, and why have you put excellence at the center of your work? And if you could just tell us a little bit about your background in education.
Sure. Well, thanks for that, Demi. And what a great opportunity to be with you today. Thanks to all of you for sharing this time with us and for this really important conversation. So I'm a classroom teacher by training. I've spent a couple of decades in the classroom. And, we all come to this work of legislating from different perspectives. Everybody has a lens. Mine just happens to be education. And when you spend a couple of decades with middle school and high school kids primarily, you develop a pretty sensitive BS meter. So if I bring anything to this education conversation, it is really understanding that sometimes when you hear things, it's not all it's cracked up to be. And so when I heard about Success Academy, I went to New York and I went to Harlem. And when I walked the halls in Harlem, my 20 years of experience in education made me absolutely convinced that what we were seeing was real, what we were seeing was powerful, and that I would do everything in my power to make sure that children in the state of Florida had access to this level of excellence. And so that was my background and my story with my introduction to success.
Thank you for that. And I did a similar tour in the Bronx, actually. And once you see it, you completely understand what it is and what they're doing. And you're amazed that something like this exists. And then you're like, why aren't we doing this in our own backyard? And there comes Eva. So Eva, you have done it. You've achieved excellence at a scale that is demonstrated that it is possible to do what you have done. And you've done so in, quite frankly, a hostile environment where failure is very prevalent. And that's the sad reality about the area you started success in. Can you tell us about the quality crisis you are seeing and how Success Academy has reversed the achievement gap? And maybe you could tell us a little bit too about what success is, what the model is, and the mission.
Sure. I mean, I started Success 20 years ago with 165 kindergartners and first graders. Now we're educating 22,000 kids in New York City. We're the 4th largest school district in the state of New York. And we're number 1 in the state in mathematics and number 2 in reading. We just got our AP advanced placement scores back, and we are beating globally countries around the world. And our kids are 94% Black and brown. We have 15% special needs children. We have English language learners. And as you said, we're doing it in a pretty hostile state. We're a deep blue state. We are not a state that embraces school choice. We don't have legislators like the two of you and your colleagues. And so, the model is really, first of all, the science of reading. We believe deeply in phonics. You have to teach phonics if you're going to teach kids to read. But we also believe in good literature, and we believe in history and mathematics and science. Chess is a subject in our school. I think both of you may have seen the chess.
Yes.
We also believe...
Starting at kindergarten, right?
In kindergarten.
Very impressive.
Every child takes chess, just like math and science. We also believe in dance and the arts. We start with ballet. I think you may have seen it. We start with ballet, and when kids are dancing and there's that emphasis on excellence, it translates into the academics. We try at Success, whatever we're doing, we want to do it exquisitely.
And you do it exquisitely. It's very impressive. And, if everyone could give their attention up here, I think this is an important part of why. Can you guys hear us? Eva, you're gonna have to teach me some tricks that you use in the classroom.
Yeah, we raise our hand, everyone raise their hand, and we get silence.
There we go. And that's why it's successful. But I want to touch on something that really stood out to me about the success model, and that's the family involvement. So I think this is a huge part of why Success Academy does so well. And can you just kind of touch on that, what the family involvement is?
Sure. I mean, schools have a tendency to try and work around parents, and I don't believe in that. As the mother of 3 myself, I don't want my school working around me or my husband. But I think it's
That's
also
right.
it's also critical. We won't succeed if we don't involve parents in the conversation. It doesn't mean that parents run the school, because it's actually kind of there are a lot of sophisticated curriculum choices. You'd have to look at all the math problems to know which are the best ones. But we engage parents. We have an open door policy. Any parent, unannounced, can come to any classroom for 30 minutes. Every parent gets the cell phone number of the teacher, the assistant principal, the principal. Our parents are our customers. It's our job to engage them. In fact, I would argue inspire them to make some of the sacrifices that are necessary to have your kids be well educated. We talk about our goal as scholar preparedness, and lest anyone leave the room thinking that we just care about academics or arts and athletics, it's actually much broader than that. We care about developing future leaders. What are the habits of highly successful people? You need self-confidence and you need self-direction. And so that is holistically what we are going for.
Thank you. And let's talk about you coming to Florida, not now just for this trip, but bringing Success Academy to Florida. Tell us about what led you to that decision, the driving force behind it.
Well, I have watched Florida from afar. And I think the first thing that's just very exciting is you guys have put school choice in the center of educational reform. And Texas has done it more recently, but frankly, they're copying Florida. And you guys have been at it for 20 years. I'm sorry, you've been at it for 20 years. You also have a sensitivity to our poorest students. And I had followed the Schools of Hope legislation. That seemed exciting. But honestly, I think it's you guys. You guys think outside the box. And I know we have a group of esteemed legislators, but I would just say same old is not going to get us where we need to go. And I consider education not only for the obvious reasons about children, but it's a matter of prosperity, the prosperity of the country. It's a matter of national security. If we do not catch up to the rest of the world educationally, I'm sorry, our country is going to have challenges. And I'm a patriot. We're in America. We can crack the code on education. It's not that hard. And so I was really inspired by Jennifer's depth of knowledge, your willingness to carry difficult bills that are new and not same old. I really felt at home with transformative thinkers who are willing to deliver for children in a national standard-setting way. And so I can't think of better partners than you all in Florida.
Thank you. And let's talk about that legislation, Representative Kennedy. So it was nothing but nothing short of many challenges to get that legislation across the finish line. We worked months on it, negotiating language, keeping the bill moving, getting over many hurdles. Can you take us into the trenches of what it took to finally get it across the finish line and why it was worth the fight?
Well, let me tell you.
And here's your 101, everyone.
If you think it is going to be easy to make transformational changes in education, a lot of us have carried difficult and controversial bills. That is something that we do. We're proud to do. You wouldn't be at ALEC if you weren't looking for ways to make impact and make change. But some of the challenges that we had and the opportunities that we had with this particular piece of legislation, which Chair Busada carried in 2025, you were dealing with a paradigm shift. And here were a few of the things that we had to break up. The first was the idea that we're doing a good job in schools if we make things really easy for grown-ups at the expense of children. So we have to start with that. And then another really foundational shift was this idea that schools are buildings that were built with taxpayer dollars for the purposes of education. Those buildings belong to the taxpayer. They belong to the students and to the families. They were built for a purpose. And so this concept of co-location, which was really important to success, was a very foundational shift for us in Florida. And I found it extraordinary that you've done this in New York, and it was a new concept for us. And so we had to not only be willing to take the arrows, as Chair Busada did so brilliantly, but we had to build the trust with districts. We had to have the conversations that really helped everyone in the state understand that we were looking for a win for everyone, but most especially for children who deserve the kind of transformational education that success offers. And so for those of you that are thinking about working on these issues in your state, I strongly recommend that you get you a Demi Busada or a Jennifer Kincart Johnson, or warriors who are willing to stand and take the arrows. But at the same time that you do that, you're building trust in districts so that they will say, you know what, I think you actually do have our best in mind and you want to see everyone win. And we really did.
Absolutely. And let's just kind of break down that co-location concept. Yeah. And when she says co-location, what Success Academy says that their model is so great, they don't need money for a new building. They don't need new construction. They said, hey, you have this school in Miami-Dade County. The capacity is 4,000 students, and you only have 1,800 butts in seats at that school. What are we doing with that underutilized space? Now what we're doing is we're making use of it. And those hurdles, it was people standing in the way saying, oh, we own this school. We own this building. You don't own the school. You don't own the building. That was built by taxpayer dollars, and that belongs to the people of your community, the people of your state. And we have a responsibility to our students to give them the best opportunity possible. So they come in with an amazing model to use space that isn't being used. And that is quite impressive that you guys have been able to do that and have been so successful. So Eva, can you talk about what, if you had to give advice to legislators out there that are interested in doing something similar, what would your advice to them be?
Well, I would advise what Jennifer did. First, you need electeds like yourself who are willing to do the transformational work. And, that's step number one. But I think, more tactically or pragmatically, often districts don't realize how much underutilized space they have. We've had declining enrollment in district schools across the country, in part because there are vouchers and charters and parochial schools, and partly because the birth rate is going down. There are all sorts of reasons for that. But, there are districts across America that have 50,000 to 100,000 empty seats. And those seats should be used for educational excellence. And so the legislation that was done in Florida, that is allowing us to open up 5 schools in 27, 28. And, you want to put all your resources into the teaching and learning. If you have to build buildings, that's going to take 3 or 4 years, a ton of capital. We want all of the resources going into the teaching and learning. And there are very few districts across America that don't have empty seats.
Absolutely. Now, raise your hand if you've been to New York. Anyone here who has ever been to New York? Okay, Eva, I'm going to set you up for a task, but I know that you can do it. Next time you go to New York, Go and tour one of their schools in the Bronx, in Harlem. I promise you it will change the way that you think about education. You will go back to your state wanting to do something that they have done, and everyone can do it. And like Representative Kennedy said, it's not easy, but it is worth it. Who in here, the school year in your state is 185 days or less? Around there. Hands up. The school year itself, how many school days? All right, Eva, how many school days do you guys have?
Well, we start on Monday.
So they start this coming Monday.
The kids start on Monday, and our kids get 3 additional years of education by the time they graduate.
Wait, stop right there. I want to make sure everyone in here heard that and understands what that means. Can we get everyone's attention? There we go. Thank you. Eva, how many additional years of education do your students get?
So by the time our kids graduate from 12th grade, where 100% go off to 4-year colleges, they will have received 3 additional years of education because of the longer day and longer year.
That's amazing. And that's why they are so successful. And that's why you have the name that you have, Success Academy. Representative Kennedy, excellence is at the heart of Schools of Hope reforms and is a major priority for you and for all of Florida and our current leaders and our future leaders. When you think about the future of education, and obviously we've done so much in Florida already, we've accomplished so much, but what work do you think is left to be done?
Well, what we need is we need more Evas. And
that's right.
And really what we need is for Eva and Success Academy to be wildly successful in Florida. Because what that does is it sets the stage for all across the country, our ability to understand what's really possible. And so as we think about the future, we want more innovation. We want more flexibility. We want more accountability and high standards, because what that does is it really brings full circle the dream of Jeb Bush 25 years ago, which was that poor kids in Liberty City, the hardest, most difficult parts of Miami and all over the country, their zip code should never define their opportunity. Their zip code should never be the thing that prevents them from the kind of life that their parents could only and grandparents could only have dreamed of. That's the power of education. And so my dream for success and for education in Florida is that more and more we become those that are willing to go do the hard thing first. We'll figure it out, and then we will be so delighted to help anyone else who wants to take this journey with us. And that's one of the wonderful things about ALEC, the opportunity to share what we've learned.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you, Eva, for making the trip down today. Representative Kennedy, thank you for your time, and thank you for your commitment to education. And thank you to ALEC's commitment to education. I think the message here is that even if your state has done universal school choice, it doesn't stop there. That is not the end of it. There's so much more work to be done to make sure that every student, no matter their zip code, no matter the economic status of the family that they come from, that they have every single opportunity that they deserve. And that's what Success Academy has done. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage ALEC President and Chief Economist, Jonathan Williams.
Wow, what an awesome conversation that was. Thanks to all of you for your continued leadership and this reminder for why this important work in education and education freedom matters so much. And if you want to learn more about the Success Academy's amazing accomplishments, you'll find some of their materials on your table. I was taking a look through it a little bit earlier. I encourage everybody to do the same. But now, please enjoy lunch, and we'll be back more with the program shortly.
This is a war on fraud, the likes of which you have never seen.
FBI, we have a warrant.
I walked through here and I wonder, how is it possible that you would have this many pharmacies in such close proximity to each other? In California, Ohio, Minnesota, to take you to the front lines wherever we're going. The task force, which the vice president leads, which the president created, is not going to tolerate this anymore. So both of these were bought by your tax dollars. No longer will champagne and private jets be paid for by the American taxpayer. The war on fraud, we're just getting started.
Well, good afternoon. And we loved hearing about success schools in Florida and New York and learning more about it. Congratulations, Eva, on your tremendous work. Our next guest, as you might have guessed from the video, oversees one of the largest complex operations in the entire federal government, a program that touches the lives of nearly 90 million Americans. As administrators of the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, Dr. Mehmet Oz is responsible for making sure that Medicare and Medicaid actually work for patients, for taxpayers, and for the states that help administer them every day. Long before he was a household name, Dr. Oz spent decades as a preaching physician or a practicing physician and a heart surgeon, and that instinct to diagnose a problem and to treat it directly has followed him into this role. Since taking over at CMS, he has made it a personal mission to root out fraud, waste, and abuse wherever it hides. Going after, yes, I think that deserves applause. He's going after improper payments, tightening eligibility verification, refusing to let taxpayer dollars disappear into a system built more for bureaucracy than accountability. That fight matters to every single person in this room, because when fraud drains these programs, it doesn't just cost taxpayers, it steals resources from the vulnerable, those Americans that programs are meant to work for. Dr. Oz understands that government exists to serve the people, not the other way around, and that real accountability requires the courage to challenge an entrenched system rather than simply manage it. That's exactly the kind of principled leadership we celebrate here at ALEC. Limited government in action, protecting free markets, and the federal system that lets the states lead. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Mehmet Oz.
Thank you very much. God bless you all. Let me earn my meal. I came to give lots of insights. I'll start with the dessert you'll be served in a few minutes. It's metabolic suicide. Don't do it. But I do enjoy the main course, which was quite Maha in nature. You know, the birthplace of hospitals incorporating the new food pyramid, which is back the way it's supposed to be, is here in Florida. I'm going to Tampa tomorrow, and the Tampa Bay General Hospital, Jeff Zakarian, the chef, the Iron Chef, went there and revitalized their food system. We throw about 1/4 of all the food served to hospital patients in the garbage because they won't eat it. And as a doctor, I was warned early on in my career that when you're in the ICU, you can't leave. You got to stay there the whole time, so they bring you food. And the warning was very clear: don't eat the food, you'll get sick. And it was true. Anybody who ate that ICU food that the patients were being forced to eat, they got illnesses and all kinds of, usually, runny nose or something, but enough of a warning that you don't want to get into that. But it is a great honor to come to Florida, Orlando, but the entire country, because you're all representing the entire country, and talk to ALEC about some things that I think are really important for you to hear about what our philosophy is in this administration on some of the realities of taking care of our fellow man. There's a beautiful inscription as you walk into our building, the Health and Human Services building, where Secretary Kennedy and myself and others spend most of our time. And it was from Hubert Humphrey. And he wrote in the 70s that it is the moral test of government to take care of those at the dawn of life, our children, those at the twilight of life, our seniors, and those living in the shadows. Think of that haunting use of light as a metaphor. What he was really getting at, and what I think all of us feel deep in our hearts, it was the founding fathers of this nation had some of these philosophies. There were quite a few doctors involved in that enterprise, that we will take care of our most vulnerable. All great people do, and we're a great nation, so we're going to do that. Some of the difficult decisions that we have to make are similar, analogous to the ones that as a heart surgeon I had to make. It's not nice to tell people news they don't want to hear. It's not polite to say things that might mean their life's in jeopardy or they got to take massive transformational steps. And although they may not like you afterwards, they will respect you if you tell them the truth. And because of that, one day, they might actually love you for having done something that was brave and necessary. And I think of that quite a bit because the job in Washington is actually quite similar to being in the open heart surgical suite. The only difference is that Washington is bloodier. And at least in the OR, we use anesthesia. And that is the fundamental reality of why we have slipped and fallen on some of these fundamental needs. And I think we can course correct if we do it together, but it's an all of government affair. And when the president in the State of the Union address in February anointed the vice president to run the anti-fraud task force, the reason he did it was to have everybody work together. So if I have something that I observe in claims and bills and the record of your care, I can actually call Scott Best in the Treasury and have him do forensic accounting to find out where's the money being siphoned off to. Or I can call DOJ or Todd Blanchett, the DOJ, or Kash Patella, FBI, and take action against some of these folks. But you know who else we can call? The states, our biggest partners on Medicaid. We can call governors and legislators and get collaboration, and that's how we're going to get ahead of this, because we have to be aligned in order to succeed. And some of the things we've done in the last year and a half are designed for that very purpose, to get us to align. And that's one of the reasons that I'm optimistic about where we are right now and where we're headed. So there's a couple topics that I want to discuss today. I'm going to set it out. I was on the faculty of a university before I came into office, so I'm used to teaching people, but especially when you have really good students, as you all are, the things that I'm saying I really feel are important for you to understand, commit to heart, and take back as evidence that there's stuff happening in DC that makes sense, but also because much of it I can't do without you. None of us can. So here are the four categories, and this is the path to prosperity, I believe. This is how we'll fix these beautiful safety net systems that were designed with the thoughts that Hubert Humphrey put in that beautiful quote that all of us know deep in our hearts are important to us as Americans. Issue number one, we do have to crush fraud, waste, and abuse because it speaks to a deeper corruption in the system. Issue number two, we have to be able to transform healthcare in rural parts of this country where 60 million people are trapped with care that is inferior to that offered in urban parts of the country. A life expectancy that's almost a decade shorter in some areas. Your zip code should not be your destiny. We have a major initiative, as you know, to address that. I want to walk you through it, make sure you get the money that's due you to do the things you should do with it. Number three, we want to preserve Medicaid. This is going to be a big campaign issue. It might be the biggest that the two parties are using on each other, and I'm not going to take a position on that. I'm just going to explain what we did, and you judge if you think it was the right thing to do, and you decide how you want to talk about it. And the fourth is technology, and this is an all of America issue. What are we going to do with AI in healthcare? Big decisions. Most of the public is scared about these, for good reason, issues, but most Americans, if they understand these topics, start to begin to engage in them. And we fear most what we don't understand, which is why this is all critical. Now, that stated, I'm going to make two really important points to start with. Before I came into government, I had never served in government. And my main exposure to government service was people at the DMV. And you remember the movie Zootopia with the sloth at the DMV? That was a fairly close approximation of what I expected. It was the biggest error I had coming into government. I didn't realize how committed these civil servants were. Now, maybe CMS, Medicare, Medicaid, maybe it's different, but I actually think it's probably the truth around the government. But people who work in my agency, they could earn twice as much money on the outside. They gave up better paying jobs because they felt they were given a gift by God that they could give to the American people. And you know what upsets them? Not being allowed to do their jobs. That really gets them upset. When they were told they couldn't go after fraud, waste, and abuse because it would make the system look bad, they didn't like that because they knew what was really happening, and it bothered them enough that when I came in, it was an open secret that they wanted to take actions on these issues. All I had to do was listen to highly qualified people. When I walk down the hallways of our agency and see the thousands of bright-eyed, cheery individuals, because they pretty are in a good place now, I see that kind of enthusiasm. The second big point I want to leave you with. Yes, money matters. And we spend $2 trillion of it in my agency, which is the largest financial spender in the country. We spend almost twice as much as the Defense Department. But that's not where the real secret is. If we can get Americans to be healthy enough that they'll work just one more year, so vigorous, so with it, so much gusto, that they want to take one more year of their life and dedicate it to work. It might be that they retire at 63, not the average age of 62. But it might be they're healthy enough that they can work throughout their work life and not have to take time off for illness, or they engage the workforce earlier. Any way you do it, one extra year of work in our nation by the working class people of this country every year would generate $1 trillion to the GDP. With a T, $1 trillion. That deals with our gap and the debt. It helps with the deficit on social spending that generates $300 billion of taxes. So we're fighting for something really big, and it's driven by quality. The most expensive thing we do in medicine is deliver poor quality care, because you're paying someone who's incompetent to do a bad job. Then you're paying and they charge you more than they deserve. Then you're charged by a competent person to fix the problem, if you can. Then you have to pay for all the downstream complications because you missed the boat in the first place. And these are the kinds of things that we cannot tolerate anymore in our great nation. That's why we're going after them. All right, let's start with fraud. The first of the 4 topics we're going to cover. And I want to thank you very much, because you guys have been all over this issue. Without state legislators often being ahead of us, we wouldn't have a light out there to follow. You have allowed us to develop concepts that you first took the opportunity to enact in your own states. And I will treasure my ability to speak with you, if nothing else, just to thank you for doing that. And please give yourselves an applause, because you deserve it. Let's talk a little bit about why fraud is such a problem. And I actually think we ought to just call it corruption, because fraud is about a rotting of the fundamental high trust society that we were born into. Just over the last decade, there's been a 10-point drop in the confidence Americans have about the goodness of their neighbors. We're becoming a lonely society because we're evolving into a low trust society. This, by the way, very fixable. But if you have a high trust society, no one steals from the poor. You just don't do that. You guys had a beautiful prayer before this session opened. Within those words is that basic assumption that you don't hurt people when they're down. You do the opposite. Yet we are witnessing in many parts of the country, many cases, foreign multinational criminal organizations. These aren't fly-by-night guys. They're weaponized individuals taking advantage of the system. And a lot of this happened because of COVID. Because in COVID, we got sloppy. We took the guardrails down. It was a crisis. Everyone said, just get the support out there. And they began throwing money at problems, which taught criminals they could defraud the U.S. healthcare system. 1/2 of all federal fraud, stolen money, is in healthcare. Again, we're the largest target, but there's a lot of ways to steal from us. Just the Medicare beneficiary numbers alone, those ID numbers that you get when you reach retirement age, we probably have 3 to 4 million of those that have been stolen. There's 70 million people on Medicare rather, 80 million on Medicaid. There are a lot of numbers out there that bad guys can get their hands on. But we have a new era of scrutiny, a new opportunity. I'm going to give you a little bit of an idea of what's happening now and then our strategy to fix it. Let's take the beautiful program of hospice, created 40 years ago to help people leave their life with dignity. And it wasn't a problem. Everyone understood the rules. You go on hospice, you give up your Medicare, we help you with the needs that you have, and off you go. There are almost 6,000 hospices in America. 1/3 of all hospices in the United States are in one city, not state, one city, Los Angeles. There are not that many people dying there. Impossible. Yet for years, although their own auditors were warning about this, everyone did performative things, but they didn't take the problem on because it's awkward to challenge fraud at that scale. So we have now shut down more than half of all the hospices in Los Angeles. And here's the part you're gonna love. I'm not hearing a lot of belly aching. I'm getting a lot of AI generated notices with some papers attached saying, we got it wrong. I mean, there are a couple cases, of course, when the people who made, for whatever reason, some decisions made them look bad, but they weren't actually devilishly trying to take advantage of people who are dying. And so we let them back on again. But the vast majority of folks in this gauntlet that we put them through, the net that we cast, were guilty and they just ran. It's called the Hawthorne effect. When you send a letter to someone telling them that you're watching, they stop doing the bad things. Let's talk about skin substitutes. Little postage stamp sizes of skin, the size of my nail, that 5 years ago was about $100 million business in America. Again, they're small little things. They cost $35 in Europe, but not in America, because in America, you could charge $5,000 and then pay a kickback to the doctor, and you could generate hundreds of millions of dollars. In fact, last year, we paid $14.4 billion for skin substitutes. It was going to be over $25 billion this year. That is a massive amount of fraud. So we did what anyone who's capable and competent does. We changed the rules. We said, from now on, you can't do that anymore. We just said, you got to charge what everyone else should charge, which is $125. When you didn't have the money to bribe the doctors and nurses and the home healthcare system, guess what happened? The business went down. How much? 99%. That's a lot of money just by making it obvious we're watching. You heard on Tuesday, Secretary Kennedy and I and the White House Task Force deferred another $1 billion from California and Minnesota. Minnesota and California are two states where we've had a lot of issues just trying to get feedback on whether or not the bills that are being submitted to us make sense. But there's a bigger problem when we have states that don't collaborate, because when they do collaborate, it's a whole different ballgame. This state we came after because the number of durable medical equipment suppliers in South Florida that ship wheelchairs and catheters, it's twice the number of McDonald's. I mean, how many McDonald's are there? I think they're a fair number, but twice that many in South Florida. And it turns out it's because the Cuban government, we believe, is involved. Folks come over, they start these businesses, they fake bill, they collect a couple $1 million, they flee back. And they were getting away with this. The governor here, when we reached out and said, hey, we're upset about this, he doubled down and said, we're going to fix it. And he asked for a moratorium on Medicaid paying durable medical equipments. We did it nationwide for Medicare. That works. That's a collaboration. That's a partnership. But when we don't have that partnership, it creates some bigger problems. So I'm going to ask you, is fraud a flaw? Is it bad for your state to have fraud? How many think that's true? Put your hands up. Is fraud bad? All right, let me try to talk you out of that naive belief. Because I think part of our problem is that fraud is a feature in a lot of states. Let's go to New York. New York, #1 job in the entire state of New York by a factor of 2 is a personal care service attendant. Someone, your kid, is carrying groceries upstairs for you, driving you to a doctor's office. In theory, if you're incapacitated, that might be a good investment of federal dollars. But 500,000 people are now hired to do that. So think about this. 500,000 people who would have been unemployed usually and therefore getting unemployment benefits instead are getting Medicaid payments that the federal government reimburses. So that's why in New York it's called medicating it. That's the word, medicating it. And that verb is unfortunately demonstrative of what the real goal is. So now we've got all these people are on the program that Medicaid federal government is reimbursing for, but here's the part that's going to upset you. And this is happening in California as well and other states I'm concerned about. They gave the information of these people who have become personal care service workers to the unions. And they turned the unions loose on them. And you cannot get out of the union's desire to sign you up. In California, I spoke to several people who had this happen to them. They locked the door. You can't leave the room till you sign up, they allege. And then when you sign up, no one answers when you try to get off the union payroll or the membership. And then all those dues are directly funneled into the union, which then uses it to fund their political action committees and its political patronage. Now, the DOJ is going after the fiscal intermediary this month in New York. We're going to go after this issue, but I want to highlight to you, don't naively think fraud is always a bad thing. Not everyone feels the same way you do, and that's one of the reasons I think we're going to be successful, because the American people don't like that. And this is not a partisan issue. Nobody likes that. People on both sides of the aisle say, guys, maybe I want to support more than you want to support, but none of us want our money stolen. So it's a theme that's going to resonate and can continue to come up again and again as we clean the system up, which we are doing. I'll give you some numbers to give you optimism. We spend $100 billion a year on fraud, waste, and abuse just in my agency. This past year, we stopped $42 billion from leaving the building. The way you stop fraud is not paying and chasing. It's the money never goes out. When the money never leaves you, they never get their hands on it, and they go and defraud somebody else. These are not going away. These people came to us from crypto and a bunch of industries, fake advertisements, et cetera. They flow to us. Now they're going to go to somebody else, but we have to stop the money from leaving. And when we do it wisely and thoughtfully, and we get states supportive of it and doing what they need to do because they know their issues better than anyone else does, with your leadership, we will suffocate this problem. And we're seeing it happen in many, many different areas. We're revalidating providers to make sure they're legitimate. In Minnesota, when we asked them to revalidate the providers in higher risk areas, half the people didn't pass. That means that half the people that we were paying money to didn't have the right to be doing the services that we're being charged for. This is low-lying fruit. These are opportunities that we have to dramatically make an impact. Okay, so that's fraud. Number two issue, rural healthcare. What is happening in rural America and how are we going to take this on? Part of the challenge in rural America is that the scale of healthcare in urban areas is much grander. So you can do group purchasing arrangements. You can have the highest and best technologies for capturing codes and electronic medical records. You have higher quality specialists who maybe aren't going to go out to the rural areas. And so what we try to do with the Rural Health Transformation Fund, which is part of the Working Families Tax Cut legislation last July 4th when the president signed it, part of the goal was to put $50 billion into your pockets. Now, they gave me the money on July 5th, and I was very strictly told to get it out of Washington by the end of the year. And on December 29th, because they don't want some bureaucrat in DC holding up the money, by December 29th, the money was sent to all your states, every single one. Now, the 50 states, now the governors have the money. Their job is to start spending that money based on the applications they gave to us, the things they promised that they would do. That money needs to start going out now, and it should be deployed by October. Now, I'm going to point something out to you. The way the law was written, I look at the grants, gave the money out, $50 billion over 5 years is to every single state, $200 million for 5 years in a row. One more time. This year and for the next 5 years, you will all get roughly $200 million to spend on improving rural health care. If you do not spend it well, I'm obliged to take it back and give it to the other states who are spending it well. So use your money wisely. What do you want to do with it? There's lots of things, but I would encourage you to think about the premise I gave you earlier, which is we have a major life expectancy difference. Can we bring up rural healthcare? How do we do it? Make the big institutions, the ones that have lots more money, lots more connections, they have all the lobbyists, have them start to share their resources with the smaller facilities. Not their money. You don't need their money. We're giving you money. Use the money we're giving to upgrade the smaller hospitals and clinics and rural healthcare centers and facilities that provide the foundational care of health in rural America. Give it to them and let them copy the bigger institutions. Have the bigger ones share their group purchasing. Have them share their medical record systems, their IT systems. Their specialists can do grand rounds together with the specialists at the smaller facility. They can form more of a communion. We can even help to make that easier by funding the necessary resources. These kinds of investments make a big difference. Many states are taking this money, and they would get extra money if they did this, just to make sure we have a presidential fitness test again. Secretary Kennedy's uncle, John F. Kennedy, and his predecessor, Eisenhower, created this beautiful test. How many of you remember climbing the rope to the top of the gym? I thought I was going to die. In my school, they had just a black bag to catch us. It was like a body bag. They put a body bag down under the rope. We probably can't do that anymore, but there are other things we can do, like sit-ups and push-ups. And we are paying $100 million to the states who are using the physical fitness test of the president, the one that was created 65 years ago, to help kids get back in shape. The Rural Health Transformation Fund is flowing, and I've been all over the country. I travel a lot because everyone's got health issues. I was in Iowa recently. In Iowa, they're using the money as a hub and spoke. They're using tools like telemedicine to get the Autism Center at the University of Iowa, which is the main academic center, to help smaller clinics taking care with challenges from learning disabilities. In Ohio, Governor DeWine started something called Ohio C. They go to all the elementary schools and they test the vision of all the kids in rural parts of the state who often don't get tested. And the kids aren't learning because they can't see the board. And so now we fund that. It's not a lot of money. Again, you have $200 million a year for 5 years. We can right-size the system if we do it the right way. Montana is modernizing its EHR, electronic health record system, so everyone gets access to their information so you can use that information more wisely. Louisiana is renting phones, inexpensive cell phones, to people in need in rural parts of the state so they can use apps and be able to communicate with the ecosystems. They can ask questions, curbside consults, so to speak, of clinicians. These are all parts of a larger quilt, and I'll tell you why America loves the idea. Because Americana, our vision for what the foundations of our nation and its values are, is based in rural America. That's the beginning of the culture. So when we see that and we see those areas falling behind and we know we can fix it, it's a moral obligation, a test to make sure that we do that the right way, which is why Congress voted and put this money out. Again, it's the largest investment ever in rural America. It's a 50% increase over what historically had been spent in rural America by Medicaid. Third thing, that's the second one, rural America. So we got fraud, rural America. Third thing is about Medicaid work requirements. This is a big topic. Let me take a step back and explain what happened to Medicaid. And maybe I'll get many of you to start to think differently about the process. I inherited a job that was projected to spend $5.4 trillion more money on Medicaid over the next 10 years. That would bankrupt the system. There would be no more Medicaid. $5.4 trillion is a crazy number. We currently spend about $1 trillion. So a five-fold increase, and that was what the projections were. And part of the reason for this were the legalized money laundering that many of you have dealt with of provider taxes and state-directed payments. Now, I understand hospitals want this and often need it, but the way it was done malaligned the federal government from the state government. When that happens, people start to fight. So the federal government is saying, wait a minute, what's going on? How come some states are doing so much more than other states? And I don't care where you're from, there's only 2 states that were really the varsity team on state-directed payments. Two states above and beyond everybody else, just better at it, California and New York. So if you lived in Mississippi or Alabama or New Mexico, you're paying higher federal taxes to make up for the fact that they're just smarter at using the system in those two states. There's some other good states too. North Carolina was good. Massachusetts was good. There are other good states, but there are just a couple that were getting a lot more money than you guys if you didn't live in those two states. And so we have to deal with the inequality that's created when the federal match is not honored. So the working families tax cut legislation balanced that out. It did not cut a penny from Medicaid. In fact, we're spending $200 billion more on Medicaid for the next 10 years. But what I'm about to say next is really important. When I came in, Medicare is growing at about 5% a year. That's more than the GDP. Medicare is growing 5% a year. Medicaid was growing at over 8% a year. Why are we paying more money for poor people than old people? Is that ethically the right thing to do? And if we're going to do it, we should do it on purpose, not because people figured out how to game the system. So what the law did was bring Medicaid to where Medicare is. They're even. We're paying more, 5% more for both. That is a fair way of running a social safety net system in healthcare. Now, to make it work, there's one other thing we thought was important. When Medicaid was created in 1965, a beautiful landmark piece of legislation signed by Lyndon Johnson, first patient, Harry S. Truman. It had been his dream to create a system, a safety net for our nation after the Second World War. He finally got to witness it happening, was the first patient. They never envisioned working, able-bodied individuals being on the program. It never crossed their mind. Wasn't supposed to happen. And if you allow it to happen, you actually create a paradox when someone who's working and someone who's not working end up in the same place at the end of the year. It's not to take away insurance. It's to say, take the insurance if you need it. But if you're able to work, we will help you get a job or get elevated in other ways so that you can actually engage life. God puts you on the planet to change the world for the better. Go out and do it. The average person who's able-bodied on Medicaid, listen carefully, spends 6.1 hours a day watching television or hanging out. That's not what you want to do. Opiate addiction rates go up because people get bored of their lives. They're not happy. So the legislation asks states working with Medicaid to give their able-bodied individuals on Medicaid an opportunity. If you want free health insurance that you don't have to pay anything for, you got to try to work 20 hours a week. Or you can't find a job, we'll get you an education. You can go get an education. Or volunteer. Just get off the couch and engage life. And we're going to give you free healthcare insurance. If you came home after working a long day and your cousin's sitting on the couch in the basement watching TV all day long and doesn't want to get up and do anything, you'd probably say something to them. So what does mean about just pointing out what everyone else is saying anyway, which is you should get up and do something? The apps that we have built, and this is Dan Brillman, our brilliant head of Medicaid, crafted these. These are wonderful private sector success stories who gave up everything to come in and serve. Dan was able to negotiate $600 million in discounts to make it cheaper for states to get access to these programs. We've signed up the big systems. They're all out there. They work well. It's there for you to take advantage of. Please do just that. And what we're asking people to do is so straightforward that I can't imagine we wouldn't make it happen. Let me give you one last topic because I'm out of time, and we can talk about it in the Q&A. If you think about technology and the role that it will play to get us that one extra year of work that we are looking forward to, then you will have to acknowledge there's a possibility that technology and digitization of records and giving you your medical records so you own them, so you could kill the clipboard, get rid of the clipboard on your phone with a QR code, give anyone you want to give your medical records, including apps that are designed to interpret your medical records and help you make sense of them and take better care of yourself. We think that's a possibility. So we started funding, it's called the Access Program, technology companies to build apps so Americans can get them. We'll pay for it. They have to show outcomes benefits. You have to live longer, better, less problems of diabetes, less kidney failure, whatever it is. But if you show those benefits, we will pay you. I think this is a major theme that will benefit the American people and that the American people will like when they appreciate it. But in the meantime, we've got a little bit of a PR problem. because a lot of people are scared of technology. They don't trust it. And I understand and completely share why those concerns exist. We have to get smarter on this. We have to figure out, are there ways we can talk about these issues so that we can actually get people to feel confident that they'll get a better quality experience dealing with the healthcare system if we allow technology to facilitate the process. With that in mind, we're running fast to make sure that the regulations are ready. So when you decide, both as legislators, but as people, as Americans, that AI or other tools might be worthy for you using, it'll be there for you. And if you never want to use it, that'll be fine as well. I wrote one page of thank yous down that I want to point out there, because I do think there are many people in the room who have been, first of all, for the ALEC members who have been working their tails off with the goal of eliminating fraud, waste, and abuse. I've already thanked you, but we cannot succeed without you, so please keep it up. For ALEC's Government Efficiency Coalition, getting amazing results by prioritizing reducing of just the wasteful processes. We are partners to yours. Please come to us as well. We have a whole new initiative on Medicaid that we're going to talk about next week at the National Governors Association to take the 450 measures of that we keep track of and reduce it to some manageable number and just focus on outcomes, not all the other stuff that gets measured. Matt Hall, I saw you this morning. Thank you very much from Michigan, the House Speaker, the ALEC Board of Directors for all you're doing, making great strides in your state. And Mary, whose last name I practiced again and again, Felskowski, rolls off your lips. She's going to take the stage. Mary, come on up. And let's talk a little bit about the things that I might not have gotten to. God bless you.
Please have a seat. So, Dr. Oz, thank you. That's amazing, and it's very inspiring, and we really appreciate you being here because Medicaid, Medicare, huge parts of our budgets, right? But one of the things I think that is hanging over a lot of states is the 340B program. Can you talk a little bit to some of the concerns and the costs and maybe what's happening in your agency regarding 340B?
So 340B is run out of HRSA. It's being moved over to my agency later this year, so I'll be able to be more impactful in things we believe might help. 340B was a smart program crafted years ago. It was designed to help hospitals that were struggling, clinics, federally qualified health clinics, good example. They live off that money.
Right.
The unfortunate gaming of 340B has led to significant angst. We just released the numbers, but last year we spent about $80 billion on 340B. This year it's going to be a little over $100 billion. 20% growth year after year is just a problem. So there is ongoing litigation, so I can't speak in too much detail, but the basic question is, how do you get at least some scorekeeping so we know who's using what when to make sure it's being used appropriately? And there's a couple examples that are concerning to me. One is that there are things called duplicate discounts where the pharmaceutical companies are being asked to pay twice, both to reimburse the hospital for the money that the medication would have theoretically cost, except that it was in 340B, much lower number. And then they have to actually pay sometimes another company, an insurance company, for that same money because they can't track how the drugs are being used. Like I said, we have been tough on pharmaceutical companies. The president was very upset about the cost of living issues around medications in America. Americans are very concerned about it because they know that roughly 1 in 3 Americans, when they walk into a pharmacy to pick up a prescription from a brand product that their doctor recommended to them, they leave empty-handed because they cannot afford the price of the medication. And that's upsetting to all of us. But when you find out that doesn't happen in Europe as often, because in Europe and Asia, the drug prices are dramatically cheaper. The same drug made in a facility here in America is 3 times more expensive to an American than to someone living in Germany or England. How's that possible?
Right.
And so the president demanded, and we were able to succeed in getting the pharmaceutical industry to drop their drug prices to a most favored nation level, which specifically means that with whatever you're charging in other parts of the world, it's got to be the same here. We're not price fixing. You want to charge a lot everywhere else, then you're going to charge us a lot. But don't charge us a lot so you don't have to charge anybody else. And when we went to their doors of these buildings, these are 17 largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, and we knocked on their doors, they all said the same thing. We knew one day you would come knocking. What do you want to do? And this is, if I could share a little secret,
Sure.
the most powerful tool we have at CMS. It's not the ability to go crying to Congress. We do that. I'm very good at crying and asking for help. But when Congress passes a law, you guys are in legislature, it's sometimes like a meat cleaver, right? You cut off everything, sometimes more than you want. But it works. It's the law. We have rulemaking. We can call balls and strikes, but that also takes a while and gets litigated a lot. But you know what really works well? The power to convene. Because we pay the bills, we can ask people to do things voluntarily because we want it done, and you know it's right, and we know it's right, and we're going to come after you if you don't do it, so just do it. So the most favored nation drug pricing was a good example of that. We were able to get the pharmaceutical companies to voluntarily do something they should have already done. It will save the American people $600 billion over the next decade. This is according to, not us, National Economic Council. And here's the part that's going to stun you. What did the stock market do to those companies? It rewarded them by increasing their market share because it said, you guys are being good corporate citizens, which means you're going to be in business. You're not going to have bad things happen to you, and we're going to reward stability. So in order to get longer term stable profits and not the huge, massive profits for just a couple of years till the plane crashes, they rewarded the industry. So American people made money, the companies did fine. That's the way to use the power to convene. There are other examples that I can point to, like prior authorization, where we're making major inroads. But that is a good way, I think, of regulatory agencies using their legal given options and powers.
So today has been fascinating, and I know we've got committees that need to start convening, but I want to do this. I want to ask on a high note. So we go out on a high note, and all the things you told us are amazing, what the federal government and this administration is doing. What gives you the greatest hopes? Because I know you see the good and the bad. What gives you the greatest hope that we can turn healthcare around in the United States, lower the costs, and deliver that quality? And how can our states, all these people in the room, help you with that?
The answer to me is very straightforward. It's the last thing I talked about. Our ability to use technology to improve the quality of care. Focus on quality. The money, you'll make it, lose it, but if you sacrifice quality, we can't get that back. The real value of America are its people. Our country has a debt, but we're worth probably $500 trillion if you just include the people. So we have to train our people, keep them healthy, allow them to live full lives. And plus, it's a lot more fun if your friends are healthy and your family's doing well. So we have got to focus on quality. The best way to do that is to use technologies that have historically been hidden. And this is an important point because most people don't understand why is it we can't do in the healthcare system what's in banking. You can go to a bank now and put an ATM card and get your money. Go get a coffee, and there's no debate about the payment. We don't do that in healthcare. Why? Because in healthcare, whenever there's a kink in data flow, someone is a toll taker. Someone is going to lift the toll gate, let the data through, they're going to charge you. Just a little something for their effort. But we're talking about trillions of dollars, a little something for your efforts, big money. And there's probably 150 people who run this stuff and are very, very successful at it. And they're going to block us from changing the system. That having data flow like a liquid will allow you to get your medical records wherever you are, give it to whatever doctors you want, whether the tools you want to use, get curbside consults, get best prices. Look at Trump RX. Trump RX is where we put all those most favored nation drug prices. If you go to a pharmacy, you should check TrumpRx.gov because the prices there will be the most transparent prices you'll ever see. You don't have to use it. If you're using it, fine. But if you don't want to use it, at least you know you weren't sucker punched by someone who's taking advantage of you. Data and the transparency that it brings you will let you make better decisions about the doctor you see, the hospital you go to. Employers will pick better, more affordable plans. It'll put money back into your pocket. And if we do that together, we could take out more than 10% of the healthcare budget and not sacrifice quality. In fact, do the opposite. That gives me great hope.
Dr. Oz, I want to thank you, and I think everyone in this room would love to thank you for all of your work and everything you do. So thank you for being here.
Now, can I ask one favor? I want one favor. I'm going to come down to you. I'm going to get one picture of the room. If the photographer can come up here. Photographer, come up here. He's running away. He's leaving. No, he's coming up. And then if Mason's here, who we'll all work for one day, I'm going to get someone up here with the cameras, and I'll airdrop them off. He's coming with his wide-angle lens. And then if I can turn the house lights up, because you can break it anyway, right? Yeah. Turn the house lights up. There's Mason. No, I want to be with you. Here. But you have to look happy.
You have to look happy.
Just sit where you are because we get you all. And take a panorama from there. Here, I'll sit down. I'll sit next to you. We'll sit together. Yeah. I'll sit next to you. Okay, come on. Oh, okay. All right. Go, guys, go up there. And this.
We were told it's all on history.
House lights all the way up. There they are. Mason, use a vertical for panorama. Why do I have to say that?
Okay, guys, make it quick. Everybody say ALEC.
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 Are they looking happy? All right, we'll do ALEC in 3. Ready? The video here. Pan the room. 1, 2, 3. ALEC! All right, God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Go ahead and head to your task forces, workshops. Thank you to Dr. Oz, the Senator, Eva, for a great lunch. I know we went over a little bit, but don't worry. You'll make it in time for your meetings, and we will see you this afternoon. And where's Gretchen? Happy birthday, Gretchen. Can I get everyone on 3 to say happy birthday, Gretchen? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday, Gretchen. Oh, yes. Thank you.